Hello, everybody. Just want to talk a little bit about modals in the past for seminar 2, that's you guys. So, and this in my Michael Vince is unit 10, I know you probably guys have pirate copies or PDFs or maybe different versions. So I don't know if he has a letter or whatever it is, but you'll find it. There's not a lot of big difference in his units here and the different versions of his grammar book. But I do just kind of want to like review what the basic elements. I'm not going to go over all the lecture notes today with you, but I kind of want to highlight the most important things that I think are really useful from his unit. Again, follow the lesson plans that are posted up for these units, and any exercises that are there, do those. Again, you don't need to send them to me. You should be able to self-check them. Of course, always feel free to contact me if you have any questions, especially concerning, like, hey, I don't really understand this example, or I'm not sure how to do this, or like, it doesn't make sense to me. Is there anything I can do? I'm more than willing to meet with you either like digitally or have an email exchange to try to help you figure out what these things mean, because that's the goal. And again, I really hope all of you will be prepared for your credit test. And I want to do what I can during this COVID period to make that as I want it to be as likely as possible for you to get credit on that test without just, sort of, and which means that you're really going to know how these modals work. Not only the modals we talked about in the unit before, which are modals in the present and future meaning, and then these in the past. So I kind of want to focus. I'll go through some of the things from the lecture notes, and again, you can look at those on the Moodle, and I recommend that. I also have, I believe I do have a different a lecture up there, another lecture, or let's just say a video of some examples of modals in the past that I hope you would find useful. So now the one thing I want to focus on right now, and this is what we really want to learn, if we're going to speak and tell a story or say something that happened in the past, and we want to use some of these modals, some of these ideas of modals, like it should or could or might, and we want to use those expressions, those like permission and ability and these kinds of possibility. If we want to use that in our storytelling or our communication when we're talking about something in the past, and which means we're going to use a modal, there's a couple different ways we can do it, but one of the bigger ones is this form that we use in English, and you're going to recognize this form from also the third conditional. And again, with the third conditional, remember, it's all in the past. And in the main clause, we have a modal, and then we use have, which you can see here in my cursor, and then the third form of the verb. And we use this same structure to express or use modals when we're speaking about something that happened in the past. And again, it doesn't matter if it happened 20 years ago or 100 years ago or 5 minutes ago. If it's a finished thing from the past and we want to use a modal, very often there's a few exceptions we're going to talk about at the end, but where we're going to use the modal plus have plus the third form. Again, this is essentially the main clause of the third conditional, and so it looks like this: would have eaten. All right, so here's have and eaten. Essentially, this is present perfect, right? This have eaten is present perfect, and we're using, but we're not in the present tense because we have this modal in front of it. But the structure is this present perfect structure. But when you see this modal plus a have plus the past participle or this third form, you're going to be like, whoa, okay, this is past. I'm talking in the past. And so it doesn't matter. We can have would, we have should have bought, might have won, could have been, must have gone. Notice there is a have for all of these. Then we have this third form, or this past participle declination of the verb here. And then of course it's the clauses all start with a different modal. Doesn't matter, you can move them all around. Now, and when you see this, you're going to know, when you hear this, it's in the past. And when you want to express something that's in the past, it's over. It's like your sentence is like, last summer, yesterday, when I was 5 years old. Okay, very often, and you want to use a modal, it's going to take on this form. And again, this form, similar to what we use like in this third conditional list main clause, it's like something that we wanted this to happen, but it didn't. This is also, even when we're not creating a conditional, third conditional with these, there's this similar idea seems to happen and come in there a lot. And we use these a lot also with negative grammar, which means not, would not have eaten, should not have bought, might not have won. Okay, we seem to use it a lot that way. Now, let's just look at a couple of examples. I want to start with should. And basically, if you understood how the places we used should in the other unit from Vents, where we just talked about modals, this is going to be similar. But if you learn this past structure, how we create it, you can do that in the past. So for example, we have expectation. This is where we would use it. When you expected something to happen, it should have happened and it didn't happen. Very similar to the expectation we use when we have an expectation in the present. It should be, or future, it should be a good party. It should have been a good party. So what's the difference between it should have been a good party and it should be? Should have been means that party is over, is finished, and it wasn't good. It should have been a good party, but it ended in disaster because somebody stole Grandma's Tlachenka, destroyed the whole party. Grandma loves Tlachenka, and she had a bunch at the end of the party. She put it in her fridge, and it's a village party, and then someone stole it, and it's like, now no, it's destroyed the party. It should have been, okay, we're talking about something that happened last weekend, and it should be a great party, something in the future. Okay, so there you go. This is an expectation. And we also use it for criticism. And again, where criticism or even advice, you can kind of use it advice in this way. And here we have, Grandma shouldn't have eaten so much Tlachenka at the party. She can't help herself. She loves Tlachenka. And of course it makes her, she eats like 60 deca of it and one time, and then has like a small beer, and then she's just like finished. So but she just loves it. She can't help it. That's Grandma Babichka. So she shouldn't have eaten. I'm kind of criticizing her a little bit. It always makes her sick. It's all sort of like advice. You should have called me. You shouldn't have worn that dress, kind of thing. All right. So, and what I want you to notice is that this is very similar. Both of these places we use them. And again, these aren't rules. These are sort of patterns. Like they're similar in the present, and they also are in the past. Here we have a should have and a verb of thinking. I'm not going to bother with that too much. Mr. Vance does a fine job of explaining that in here. Again, this is something we don't use very much in American English, where I come from. The English I use, it's more of a Britishism, but fair enough, that's fine. They created the language. And then, but we do, most of us use this, and this is just a polite expression of thanks. We would use this, Grandma, I ironed all your clothes for you. And oh, Libor, you shouldn't have. right? You shouldn't have. It's just like, oh, someone buys you a new phone for your birthday. It's like an iPhone, whatever, 12 or whatever they have now. And oh, you shouldn't have, it's too expensive. Da, 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 da. Okay, very simple. All right, so that should. And try to look at the comparison between should in the present and in the past, and the places we use them that are the same. Similar with could have and couldn't have done. Again, past possibility. Could is something that was possible physically. It's the same in the present, but it just didn't in the past. Here, it just didn't happen usually. So Libor could have passed the test. Now, what do we know about that? If I say Libor could have passed the test, it means that he didn't take the test. That's basically, he was afraid. I didn't study, so he didn't take the test. But it was such an easy test that almost everybody passed it, and he could have passed it. It was possible, even with the limited amount of studying that he did. He still could have passed it. And back to Libor and grandma, this is kind of like, this is like past it's something that was possible. There's a level of uncertainty here too. And like, I suppose Libor could have stolen. Okay, again, you need all of these to put it in the past. Could have stolen grandma's Slachenka from the fridge. Libor doesn't like it. It's clear, but Libor, at the Zabava, he slept at grandma's house because he doesn't live in the village anymore. And now he, was doing some drinking and he didn't want to drive back to town. So he slept at her house. She's got a big house. And so he could have stolen it. He was there, but he doesn't eat it. I don't know what he would have done with it, but it's possible. Okay, he could have done it, but we don't know. All right. And again, we use this with comparative adjectives. If you look at number 2 here, similar to couldn't, how do you feel? I couldn't be worse. My dog is really sick. It's going to need surgery. I lost my house because I can't make my mortgage payment. And, I have a backache. I couldn't be worse. And, but we can do the same in the past. Oh, I couldn't have been happier. Well, this is Libor. For the first 6 months after Libor got married, he couldn't have been happier. So couldn't have been happier. And here we have, I couldn't have been angrier, right? This is the comparative adjective, angrier and happier. It's just a structure we use. It's a little helpful. And here's something unwilling, when the speaker or the subject is of our story, of our sentence, is unwilling to do something, okay? So Libor could have been an excellent lawyer, but he didn't like studying. He was lazy. And we use it like, she's just unwilling. He could have moved. Libor could have moved to Prague and gotten a good job, but he just didn't want to live in Prague. He was unwilling to live in a Sidliště in Prague. He didn't like all the people and the trams and metros and stuff. He's basically a village guy who, like, for him, like Szczecine's a really big town. So he moved to Szczecin. That was where he moved to. And yeah, and then we have a negative there with Boženka, but let's move on. You can again look at these at your own leisure. And we have might. And again, might is it's also about possibility and a little less strong than could, which is about physical possibility. And might is also about physical, but it's just kind of like a little less strong. So could is like a little kind of higher up the scale, I'd say. Maybe not a lot, but it is. Okay. And again, notice where you see a pattern here. It didn't happen. Very often it didn't happen. And that's why we use the negative grammar so much. because then we're talking about things that actually did happen. All right. So here we have Betty might have killed herself driving so fast. What does that mean? What do we know about that? It means what? It means that she was driving fast. She drove fast to work today, driving through Hostka on her way to Szczecin. Lots of trucks. She's going 120 kilometers an hour. It's dangerous. She might have killed herself and all the other people in her car driving so fast because she didn't want to be late for work. And boss would be upset. And there's some more examples there. And again, we have something that is uncertain. And again, with might have, there are situations where you can change it with may. And again, may is a little more formal. So here I guess I may have been a little too hard on Betty. I'll apologize because I told her, like, why'd you drive so fast? Like everyone says you drove fast, you could have killed them. You might have killed those people today. And she's like, oh, she's mad at me. She's not talking. And maybe I might have been a little too angry with her. I might have gotten a little too intense with her. I may have gotten a little too hard on her. So I'll apologize. I'll say I'm sorry. Okay. So, and again, this is, we have it under uncertainty. I'm not really interested necessarily that these headings that I'm putting up here. It's not important to know those. Look, again, these are just guidelines. They're not rules. They're guidelines to kind of help you think it through. What's important is how to use it and use it in the proper context. And again, you can express annoyance when you're annoyance. I might have thought about someone, you might have told me, you might have tried to make more of an effort. Again, this is kind of a little bit more how British people speak, not so much Americans, but it's good. It's still good English. And then what do we have here? Might have known. We used to use with irony. Derek, I might have known you would show up all tan and cut. Cut means like, buffed out, good muscles and all that. And this kind of means that Derek didn't show up tan and cut. He showed up white and slightly paunchy and soft around the belly parts. Okay, so I might have known that it was going to end up this way. Usually kind of use this to, you should have, I might have known, So again, and now here we have must have and can't have. Well, I want to focus on must have because in our lecture a couple of weeks ago, I talked about must. Musel, it doesn't really exist in English. Musel, it does, but it's had to. We have must. Must is only present tense. We can't put it into the past tense, but we can use this structure in the past. And it's not really musel, but it does have a very unique and interesting meaning that's kind of connected to must, but it's not exactly musel, like musel sem diat, like it's not that, okay? So what does it mean? And I describe it, and Vince describes it as you're certain about a past action. Like you're kind of certain. You see the results of it now, and you are certain. Like you have a really good, strong idea. So how do we? Like, here's my first example. Grandma after the Zabava wakes up. She's a little hungover. Well, there's nothing she likes more when she's a little hungover than some tlachenka. She goes to her fridge. She opens the fridge. There's no tlachenka. She looks on the table in the kitchen. There's no tlachenka. She looks on the kitchen counter. There's no tlachenka. She looks all over. There's no tlachenka. She looks in where Libor's sleeping. There's no tlachenka. She remembers, she's not that old. She remembers bringing the tlachenka home. And she's like, someone must have stolen my tlachenka. Because it's not there. Okay, so this is something, she's certain something happened. She's certain, she doesn't know who did it or what, but she's kind of certain about that. Now, someone says, she starts to call people and she's like, you see my Tlachenko? And at first she's like, Betty did it, because Betty she's worried about me and my health, and she says I shouldn't eat Tlachenko, and Betty did it. And like, her daughter was like, no, it wasn't Betty, because Betty's on holiday. She can't have stolen your Tlachenko. So here we have can't. This is certain. Okay, and it's negative. It's always going to be negative when we have this certainty. She can't have stolen your Tlachenko. You can say that she couldn't have stolen her Tlachenko also. Okay, both of these are interchangeable, in my opinion. Okay, and now here's another example of something that's certain with must, because I want you to kind of understand how this is. It's like 12 o'clock, Libor's still asleep, and it's like 12:30, he's still asleep, and grandma says that he must have stayed up all night partying because he's sleeping all day. He must have gone to bed at 6 a.m. because he's sleeping all day. He must have done that. Okay, so again, this is something, and I do want you to kind of understand this. This one especially, because it isn't Musel exactly, but it is a way we can use must in the past. All right, and then we kind of use it with this just an exclamation. And again, Vince gives you fairly good descriptions of all of these in here. It's like 2 pages. You can read it very quickly and start to digest it. I recommend reading it more than once. Surely you must have seen the new Star Wars. Everyone has. Again, Britishisms, but that's fine. And now we have would have, and I'm going to let you, these are pretty clear and pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to let you look at those on your own. And we have need and have done. And again, this is super, super British, but it's kind of nice when they use it with their accents for us Americans, because it sounds so educated and, like kind of upper class, I guess, depending on the accent. But, and again, here we have, he needn't have paid for our drinks, but tell him thanks. All right. So you needn't have done that, Charlie. Okay, kind of thing. Now I do want to talk about, before I let you go, just a couple of other modals in the past. And we have would not. And again, Vince explains these are very simple. Unwillingness. Samuel would, and it's negative, and it's something that's the character or the subject or this of the sentence was unwilling to do. Samuel wouldn't pay me back, so I wrestled him to the ground. Wrestle. He wouldn't pay me back. He was unwilling to pay me. Manny wouldn't be quiet. All right, so we're not using would have or anything, but we're talking about something in the past. We're using would, just would not. Again, it's negative, would not. And depending on the context, I can use that to express this idea in the past, use this would in the past. It doesn't even have to be negative. There's times that we can use would in the past where it's sort of like, and I believe we've talked about this. Maybe it was in seminar 1, where you can use would, like, when things, you were reminiscing about things. It's like, yeah, when I was young, we would, every year meet at my uncle's house in the mountains and hike and sleep in tents outside. It was a lot of fun. We would fish in the streams, and then we'd cook there we're speaking using would in the past as well. So this is an example of a modal. So we have would not, and then we have could. And I think this is sort of like the past tense of can. and you have permission or just physical ability. When Bob was 10, was a teen, sorry, he could swim across the lava. Can't do it anymore, but when he was a teen, like a teenager, he could swim across the lava. And when Claire lived at home, she could smoke weed and party in her room. She had permission. She doesn't live at home anymore. But when she did, her parents were like, yo, Pohodia, go ahead, smoke it up. She could smoke dope and party in her room. So everybody loved to hang out at her house in her palak. And then be able to, and of course you would just put the be into the past tense, and it's kind of like yet, I believe, in Czech. And then you have this modal in the past. When she was a child, she was able to speak 3 languages fluently. All right. So we have these 3: would not, could, and be able to, which are modals we use in the past that are not in this structure. What I really want you to focus on in this unit is learning that structure and becoming comfortable with it. Would plus have plus that past participle, that third form of the verb, and just really make sure you kind of digest that and imprint that onto your brain. It will certainly be like on your credit test. Well, you'll have to decide if you use the past form of this modal verb or a more present tense or future tense of this modal verb. So, and again, you might be like, oh, that's past. But then you have to construct it and put it together the right way, which is modal plus the have plus the third form. Okay, so it all starts with that, and that is more or less what I have today. So that's it. I'm going to let you go, and all right. I mean, yeah. All right.